Hey maker, do you ever take a whole batch of product photos, then realize later that they're blurry, crooked, or just don't look right? In this video, I'm walking you through exactly how I shoot my styled flatlays. I'll cover the tripod setup, framing the photo, camera settings, and how I double check everything before I wrap up the shoot. And if you're jumping into this video mid-series, make sure to check out the full start to finish playlist on how I styled, lit, and shot this nursery wall side. You can click right up here, or you can find the link in the description below. And if this is your first time joining me, hey, I'm Christina Nicole, product photography coach for makers. So the shooting process typically is the most tedious, but it's also one of the most critical. So I want to give you a little bit of the behind the scenes on what I do ahead of time to make sure that we're only having to take a couple shots. We're not having to do reshoots or a bunch of extra edits. So this is going to save us time in the long run. As I mentioned, it can be slightly frustrating in the beginning because we're going to have to make a lot of tweaks. We're going to have to take some extra steps just to make sure that we are getting a great image straight from the camera the first time, okay? So I have everything set up here, so I'm just gonna kind of walk you through the process of what I did. Once we have the actual setup kind of put together, we are going to make some additional tweaks to that setup. As you noticed in a previous video, we already did some test shots just to kind of see how our props looked. But in this video, we're gonna make sure everything's super refined, everything's perfectly straight, all that kind of stuff. First thing we're gonna start with is our tripod. You'll notice here that I am using a tripod that has a boom. That just means it goes straight out. It is for Flatlays. And I am using my DSLR camera. Everything that I talk about in regards to my process can 100% correlate to you using your smartphone, which is a perfect choice for taking product photos for your online shop. So you can get an attachment for the end of a tripod like this, a smartphone attachment, and you can do the same concept with your smartphone here. I also connected my actual camera to my computer so that I could see inside the camera. This right here is kind of a critical concept when we're shooting flatlays, especially on a tabletop, because we can't see into the camera. If you're using a smartphone, you can also mirror that to a computer. You can use your smartphone watch and view the actual image and also use it to capture the image. You can use an iPad. There's a lot of different ways to mirror your camera to a different device. So definitely look into that. It's gonna help us really see the photo. Stop guessing, stop holding the camera up like this, just hoping and praying that we get everything straight and perfect and all of that, okay? So we've got the correct height. We've made the tripod the correct height so we can properly frame the photo, and we've leveled it out. That's going to be another critical step here. So I use just a teeny tiny level. I go in and I check the boom to make sure the boom is straight, and I check the bottom of the lens to make sure that it is also level when we're doing flatlays. Now, if you're using a smartphone, more than likely your camera has a level inside of it, so just make sure that that is level. Also keep in mind your setup. So you also want to make sure that your setup is actually level as well. I work on a crawl space, so sometimes my floor has kind of movement to it, one, and two, it's not completely level everywhere. So you want to make sure your setup is level, not just your camera, okay? To also help with that, we are going to use the grid. You can either use the grid within your camera, or I have a grid set up here on the computer. And we're going to make sure that all of our lines are straight. We have a lot of lines in this image. We've got the shelf. We've got the actual sign. We're going to use these lines, these grids, to create negative space between our raccoon and our wooden blocks and the actual sign. Okay, we're going to make sure everything looks great before we take the photo. Now you're probably thinking, Christina, this is a lot to do, or I don't have all of this fancy equipment. Again, you can use your smartphone, you can use your computer, another device to mirror it. It's the same concepts. You can use the grid within your smartphone. Goal here is to make sure that everything is level and straight, because that's less editing we have to do. And sometimes in your image, it can look like it's not straight, but it's actually kind of the perspective's off. It's a tilt. So that can be challenging to fix in editing. So once we have all of this set up and we make sure everything looks great, make sure we're framing it the way we want to, we're good to go. Now, inside your smartphone, you do have aspect ratio adjustments. I am taking this photo with the intent for it to potentially be used on Etsy because it's one of my students' products. So I am shooting this in a 4:3 aspect ratio. I am framing it as best as possible initially so that I do not have to crop too much of the photo out. So that's something you want to keep in mind. I also styled this photo with that 4:3 aspect ratio in mind as well. So always create your setups, always take your photos with intent on how you're going to use them. Okay, our next step is to actually take the product photo. This is something that you want to be mindful while you're shooting. Your sun can change and shift, so we definitely want to be watching those shifts in the image. We're looking at shadows, we're looking for a higher presence of light on one side or the other. So just the more you start shooting, the more you're going to see those shifts and changes. So just kind of pay attention to them. First thing we're going to do is, again, I'm shooting with a DSLR camera. I'm shooting in manual, which means that I've set my aperture, my shutter speed, and my ISO. If you're using a smartphone, you are going to kind of have a more simpler process where you're just going to swipe your finger left or right, depending on the camera you're using, and you're going to adjust the exposure that way, okay? My recommendation to you is to take a photo with 2 to 3 different exposures, especially if you're shooting on a smartphone, or if you're shooting on a DSLR and you're going off the little LCD screen, because you can't always see all the detail. And so allowing ourselves to have 2 to 3 different exposures is going to give us potential variety when we go to actually edit these images. And then I'm actually going to I'm going to increase the exposure a little bit, gently tapping to set focus. Make sure you tap the screen, hold and lock to set focus on yours as well. And then we're going to do one more. So if you're shooting on a smartphone, my recommendation to you is to set focus, or tap the screen to set focus, hold the screen to lock that focus in on your product, okay? And then take an image. Then what you're going to do is swipe your finger up to increase your exposure just a little bit. Take another image. And then maybe do it one more time. That way you have a couple different exposures to work with. And depending on the setup you're using, more than likely you're going to be increasing exposure. Now that the shoot is done, there's just one more step: editing. Next, I'll show you how to bring out the details in this engraved wood sign, fix any lighting quirks, and make sure the final photo feels clean, cozy, and true to color. Click the link below to check out the full start to finish playlist if you want to see the whole process from concept to completion. See you next time.